Okay, and we're back. I double checked the stream from last week, and that one came out fine. I re-recorded the prologue for the ambassador route. That came out fine as well. I will re-record the night prologue. The ambassador prologue will go up this Saturday. Night prologue will go up the following Saturday, and then so on. There may be a pause in the Errant Kingdom streaming, depending on when the preview for When the Night Comes out. It's supposed to be out soon, like next month soon, but we'll see how things look. But for now, we will continue with the ambassador storyline now that we've done the prologue for each route. So, a quick recap. Oh, my mouse is in the wrong spot. The quick recap. The ambassador has arrived in Novus as the replacement for a still living predecessor. Normally, an appointment like ambassador is something that lasts for a long time, but in this case, the ambassador was dismissed. So, your character is the new ambassador, and this is actually, technically, this is chapter 1. We were just doing the prologue before. So with Lunaris Games, the way they set it up is the initial chapter, whether it's chapter 1 or a prologue, you don't flirt. You don't get flirt options. And then the rest of the game, you can flirt, and then you can choose your romance. And I will be choosing a romance. You can not romance people, or you can not kiss people. You can choose how far your characters go, which I really appreciate, because there are some people who find even reading about being with someone physically not fun. Even just kissing people isn't pleasant to them. So the creators for the game have kept that, well, not just this game, for When the Night Comes as well, have taken that into account. So you can have the romance, but if you don't want that physical part, or if you only want it to go to a certain point, then that's fine. So, the ambassador has arrived at Novus, and like the night of the day of their arrival, there was an assassination attempt on the King and Queen of Novus, and so all the persons of note were herded into a single room for their safety, while the Knight Commander, Lydia Vasile, sorry, I love her, and her knights scoured the castle for any sign of said assassin. Needless to say, they did not find said assassin. So then there was a speech given the following day to kind of reassure the population, and the ambassador was given 3 hours notice that they were to be the keynote speaker, basically. They would have less time to prepare, if not for their friend Lady Maja. So, we have met all the potential love interests. There's Lady Maja Olainka, the Archmage. There's Knight Commander Vasile, she's head of the Knights of Novus. And she's only recently gained the position. She's fairly young for it. There's Ambassador Lucian Veritas. They are a demon, and they are non-binary. Hence the they, them pronouns. Then, that's all the people in the castle. And then in the city, we have the former Knight Commander, Eric Nistrom, who we also find out was Maja's lover. So yeah, there's history there. So they are one of the poly options. There's also Raiden, no last name. He is an assassin, and he's also Lucian's lover. So they're the other poly option. And then we met Rue, a Fae, and they are also non-binary. And I like the fact that we see two different expressions of being non-binary. Not just in terms of being feminine or, presenting as feminine or presenting as masculine, just two different persons. And we don't know how Lucian came to decide their presentation, but maybe that'll come up later. But you do get a chance to talk to Rue about it. So without further ado, let us continue. As we wait for the game to load and load. That is one of the problems with the program they decided to use for Errant Kingdom. Okay, here we go. It's all past sunrise, and yet the surrealism of what happened last night still hasn't left. A little more space for my house here. There we go. The garden, fortunately, turned out to be a good place to have a peaceful breakfast. There's an infinite entrance Cedric had been most helpful in locating, and it led to an appropriate enough spot to roll out the food and drinks I don't feel like sharing with anyone else. I might have considered taking my breakfast in my quarters as before, or in the library. After my encounter with Raiden, I'm not sure if I can trust these locks and doors to protect me anymore. Not that he's been particularly threatening, more like this is their first third option, and it's just kind of give an idea of your mental state towards him. So I decided ahead of time that I'm going to pick all the third options on all of the routes, just so the people can see that. So this heart indicates that it's a third option. More like I can't for the life of me get him out of my mind. I'm sorry, but that line just takes me back to Singing in the Rain, which I know it's an older movie, but it's hilarious. It's in some aspects it's aged well, in other aspects it hasn't, but it's relevant enough to say that I love it. I know what the feeling is, unfortunately. I felt artificial impressions of it before, as the Fae are wont to charm you for their own amusement. The frightening thing is that this instance of attraction isn't artificial. A part of me wishes it was. It'd be far less complicated then. Oh yeah. I wave away the memory like it's an annoying fly. Focus, Raheem. What's the world becoming that my heart races for every dashing burglar who breaks into a library? An invitation from a demon, no less. Not that wondering about any of those things would do me any good now, knowing as little as I do. Sighing heavily, I drained my cup of tea and glanced down at the breakfast tray. At the imposing dark blue envelope and its elegant wax seal bearing a crest I utterly do not recognize. For a house so obviously lacking in influence, I sure paid a great deal for showy stationery. The message within I already know, so there's no need to even open it. It's been advertised for a week before I got to Novus, apparently. Some lesser noble free-for-all. If you look the part, you're invited to informal meet and greet held in the city itself. I've even seen posters for it while walking the merchant's quarter. The more distinguished guests are afforded individualized invitations, like the one sitting on my tray. Since there's nothing else on the tray, however, I reluctantly pick it up. The parchment feels so expensive between my fingers, and there's a strange sheen to it that suggests some kind of enchantment. Some cheap party trick, probably. A pirate shower sparkles when I open it, a beautiful little noise whistle sound. Wrinkling my nose, I slowly pry the wax seal open. Pop goes the envelope, releasing a cloud of glittery smoke and a wave of perfume straight into my face. Oh, Ambassador! Gauntleted hand clamps down on my shoulder. I see another reach past my face, and black-gloved fingers grab the envelope and yank it away. I blink in shock, then look up at Knight Commander Basile, who had hurled the invitation to the floor and drawn her sword, crimson cloak sweeping as she puts herself between me and the threat. It takes a moment for my brain to completely catch up. Commander, please, it's just a magical effect. A little pump and flare. You don't need to raise the alarm. And with her armor, I can see Olivia's shoulders are bunching up. Maybe she would raise the alarm if I don't act now? So I act. I hastily get to my feet and step around her, enduring her sharp glare, to go and pick up the envelope. I let it out for her to see as placatingly as I can. Believe me, if I could avoid this nonsensical attempt at impressing a stranger, I would. As you can see, it's only a special effect. For a moment, Livia only glares at the envelope at least and not at me. As I begin to worry she might burn a hole in the thing, however, she sighs gustily and straightens, sheathing her sword. She turns away, but not fast enough for me to see what looks like a flush on her cheek. No, I'm truly imagining it. Safer that I'm imagining it. My sincere apologies, Ambassador. Things have left me high-strung of late. Please, don't apologize. I press my lips together to hide the smirk that threatens to surface. It's very gallant of you to dash to my rescue, though, even against an imagined threat. Livia's head snaps right around. Her brow draws down thunderously, but by this point, I've gotten used to her three usual moods: anger, don't care, and no feelings. So I only hold her gaze and keep smiling. Yes, She clears her throat and sighs and shifts on her feet. Her armor clinks as she relaxes her stance. I think this moment is what sealed the deal for me to do Livia and the Ambassador for my initial playthrough, which I'm not going to do, but it's still fun to flirt. Because she reacts. Her reactions are worth it. Better that than the alternative. His and Her Majesty's safety is not the only thing I'm responsible for around here. You will find that I'm perfectly capable of looking after myself, Commander. No need to worry. Yes, I suppose Sir Cedric would never let you handle something he hadn't personally checked. And keeping an eye on him? Your vigilance eases concerns for my safety. So this other symbol, this indicates cat. It's supposed to be a dove, which is often meant to symbolize peace. So it makes sense that it would be used for attack. There are other symbols, and then up here plus attack. So depending on choosing options like that will increase your tact, and then the other ones will increase other attributes. So in settings we see that. So, well, I say tact, but it says good here. Honorable, this is for the knight. Cunning, so basically my thought is this is more the sort of thing the ambassador would pick. This is more the sort of thing the knight would pick. This is what what the nomad would pick. And then harsh, it just means you're being very blunt. This is flirt. Polyflirt, this is, you'll obviously only be relating to Maja, Eric, Raiden, and Lucian. And then ace flirt. So that's just, it's keeping things low key. So you can still romance people even if you're ace. So, there we go. Yes, indeed, he's one of the finest knights of our kingdom. Your vigilance had eased his concerns for my safety tremendously, however. Refuses to let up, of course, but it's a great comfort to know Novus is so secure. I snort, remembering how quickly and with such scary effectiveness Livia herself had chased me down when I left with Lucian the other night. And that its Knight Commander isn't about making the arrest herself if there's misbehavior in the castle. There's a pause. It's an odd pause, so I look up at Livia curiously, worrying for a moment that I said something to offend her. I catch her staring at me instead, her head cocked in similar curiosity. It's not the kind of suspicious, cold scrutiny I've come to expect from her, rather something almost like uncertainty. At length, Livia looks away and clears her throat. I wouldn't dare suggest I flustered her, but she looks dangerously close to it. Oh no. Oh ho, what is it now? Is Knight Commander Vasile partial to compliments? I take no joy in chasing down troublemakers, Ambassador, believe me. She sighs deeply, sounding annoyed now, and fixes me with a sharp look. Knowing that you have your loyal knight within reach and other tricks up your sleeve doesn't excuse your misbehavior, as you put it, but it does ease my concerns somewhat. It's hard not to squirm. I will myself not to, and instead force the conversation along. Luckily, in my hand is the perfect topic change. I hope it won't be too much trouble for me to attend this outing, then. I hold up the envelope for her to see. Instantly, Livia's expression sours. She opens her mouth, and I half expect her to argue that I need to be escorted by a contingency of her finest knights, at the very least in a pavilion surrounded by guards. Instead, after a moment, she crosses her arms, contemplating. I take it if that's the little event in the merchant's quarters happening tonight. Only that lord would prepare such a gaudy invitation. Oh, so she knows it. Yes, indeed. It was rather last minute, but considering your monarchs put me on stage in front of your entire city yesterday, with little more than a warning, I figured I should have a pleasant surprise instead. As a treat, you understand. Maybe a foot thin. Then she turns and snorts, and I said a smile I spy on most of your lips. It passes in the blink of an eye, however, and Livia glowers at me like she's going to kick me in the knee if I so much as mention it. Why ask me when you know I have neither the authority nor the means to bar your way? For the same reason you have someone to pass you the salt at the dinner table instead of telling them to. Manners. Fair enough. Lady Masha and I will be attending the event as well, so we will look forward to meeting you there. Fortunately, you don't get to actually see Livia at this event in the ambassador route. You do briefly see her in the night route, and it's actually where the nomad meets her. As for Lucian. Really? I thought it was only a mingle for the lower class. Certainly not something three of the biggest names in Novus itself will be at. Lady Masha won't be persuaded to stay here. It's for the people, she says. Foreigners will be there, more likely than not. Travelers, merchants, even spies perhaps, hoping to see weakness in our walls. I nod, understanding dawning quickly. Of course the Grand Archmage of the Kingdom would want to make an appearance. Perhaps to purposefully draw attention to herself and what she's capable of. Oh, I would love to see exactly what Masha's capable of. She's popular with the people then? Masha had been absent from speech, but given how friendly she was, I would figure so. Or perhaps, as Lucian had suggested, she'd done so to avoid seeing Sir Eric. She's well respected. She oversees the teaching curriculums for our mages in training and enforces the laws on practitioners, as you might be aware. It makes her known to the merchant class, and I'm sure they'll be all too happy to mingle with her, if only they would let me attend in my armor. I turn away and pass a hand over my mouth, hoping it would be enough to hide my grin. Not fast enough, it looks like. Livia tilts her head and frowns. What? It's nothing. If you showed up in full armor, the whole gathering would be too nervous to talk. Livia blinks and sighs heavily. She takes a step away from me and looks into the garden beyond the archway, her hand resting on the hilt of her sword. Ready for it? Something seems to weigh heavy on her brow. Novus is a fine home, a generous home. I would give anything to protect it and its people. In order to do so, it's paramount that order be maintained and the laws respected, and that criminals be punished. It's a solemn duty, and one I take pride in. Looking the part is as important as being the part for me. Do I put people that much ill at ease? The words seem to almost be directed at herself. But it does give us a huge insight into her character, who she is. You make people nervous. Being imposing isn't a bad thing. One can get used to it. And of course, we're gonna go flirt, 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 all the way. Just a little. But one can get used to it. She turns away quickly with a purposeful throat clear. Is that color on her cheeks? Okay, it's not on the sprite. Bite my lip to fight back a smile. I appreciate this chance to talk to you, Ambassador, but I must be going. There are other matters requiring attention before Livia sighs again and rubs her temple. The event tonight. The way she spits out the word, she might as well have said ordeal. For Livia, though, I figured that's akin to asking her to wear no armor to a battleground she's not familiar with. Even if it's just people, many or all of them so far below her in station that they would almost warrant no notice at all. I smile sympathetically. Once upon a time, I was the same, and bow. I'll see you tonight, then. In the meantime, I'll find something suitable to occupy my time with. A walk around the city sounds nice. Any recommendations? A walk around... You let me know this time before deciding to leave, I suppose. Take care not to get pickpocketed, Ambassador, and do avoid the obvious signs of trouble. She returns my bow with a salute, then turns and marches away. Once I'm sure she's gone, I slowly drop back into my seat. The obvious signs of trouble? Really, what does she think I am? A trouble magnet. Unfortunately, I soon find out why Olivia, and Cedric for that matter, once I told them where I was going, I haven't been so worried about the envoy from Fitzroy going into town. Novus is full of guards, plus members of the watch in the past night. In twos and threes they pace the streets, carrying their weapons, boxes, and messages. The merchants' quarter is busy but tense, the people made uneasy by the sudden increase of law enforcement. Commoners rush about their business with minimal eye contact to the point where once or twice someone almost runs into me. It makes for a rather unpleasant atmosphere and most absolutely ruins any enthusiasm for sightseeing I might have had, at least not in this corner of the city. I leave the crowded roads behind and let my feet and the vaguely remembered street signs from yesterday guide me till I arrive at the town square where I delivered the speech. It's nearly empty now that there's nothing of note happening. A few laborers on their break loiter around, but they're clumped together having conversations I don't care to hear. Well, wow, fancy seeing you here. That voice, on the other hand. Again, I turn and frown at Raiden, who has, much to my irritation, seemed to just materialize a few feet away. He's dressed differently today, and there's something about the way he holds himself, too, that projects the I am a town boy on normal town boy errands. There's a canvas bag slung halfway over his shoulder, filled to spring with what looks like, don't let me interrupt your grocery shopping. So I suppose you were the one who set aside a little time in your precious day to interrupt my stroll. Oh, you know it. Always good to see that you haven't died of a heart attack after I left you yesterday night in their fanciness. Raiden grins wider, which the audacity. The best way of dealing with these kinds of people I've learned is to look away from their face. Hey, don't check me out without paying first, yeah? You're assuming an awful lot, Raiden. Finger guns. And you're just here for another stroll, huh? Or looking to get into trouble? I wish I could reach up and wipe that smirk from the vagrant's face with my hand like my aunt used to wipe dirt from her son's. Despite how close we were standing, however, something tells me trying to actually touch Raiden would be a mistake. At worst, he might bolt. At best, he'd make yet another idiotic joke. I don't want any more idiotic jokes. So I smooth down my clothes. That gives my hands something to occupy themselves with. This time, I am quite literally just sightseeing. And what exactly do you want, Raiden? Attention? Ha! Cute. Quite the opposite, actually. And, believe it or not, I was doing you a favor. Can't have your poorly disguised self wandering aimlessly about, attracting all this unwarranted attention. I'm not poorly disguised. Have you seen any heads that turn? No heads that matter, and the ones that do, they won't give themselves away as easily as that. I glanced at the near empty streets again, thoroughly uneasy. Those words sent a jolt of paranoia through me. In talking to Raiden, I subconsciously drifted closer to him and halfway into a side alley that offers some protection from the town square and the few people there. Who's watching in this time? Should I have brought Cedric along after all, or failing that, at least some guard? See, a little concern goes a long way to stay safe. First rule of tourism. Would you stop calling me a tourist? Raiden squints at me as if for some exaggeration. Then he grins. Okay, Raheem. Okay, so this is the first chance to be harsh, and I can never be harsh. I can never be mean. So we'll go with this. I stare him down. Hard to do with someone is this smug about being, well, himself, but my God, do I try. Mostly ineffective, tragically. Raiden leans back on his heels and tilts his chin up just so, it's only describable as shit-eating. You so enjoy being annoying on purpose, don't you? Everyone's got to have a hobby. Starting with this, considering you're clearly an assassin. And he shoves an apple in my mouth. The fruit barely touches my lips. It's getting cool, but it's a shock of his audacity that jolts me into silence. Wow, you actually shut up. Annoyed, I shove his hand away. He snatches it back, winks at me from under his white fringe, and turns the apple around to take a loud, vulgar bite of it, right where my lips are touched. It's fortunate you're in the favor of a demon, Raiden. I can only imagine how many people in the city and beyond who want you dead. He only shrugs. The perils of a fun and zesty personality, especially when you're a Novian. I wish there was more than these two options, because I don't like either of them, but this is not the harsh one, so perhaps. And I should be charging you for that sweet bite assassin, not just anyone gets to eat fruit-type kiss. It's sour as shit, so I would be asking for compensation. But he laughs loud and hearty and shoves the apple back into the bag he's hauling around. By the way, spare my feelings, would you? Don't go around accusing me of assassin so readily. His smile doesn't falter, but Raiden glances at the streets beyond the alleyway. I wonder if it's even an intentional gesture. Still, point taken. Strange, I take you for somebody who brags about screws to anyone who might be listening. Phrasing that like you want to hear me talk, I see. But that's third date activity at the least. Sorry, darling. The less I know, the better, really. Unless it's about Eric and Maja and what Lucy's up to, right? I shrug. He's got me there. Valuable information, especially if you're not about to even let me ask what you know about what's going on. Like you don't have servants to do it for you. Watch your tongue. Raiden shuts up, his mouth half hanging in open surprise. It disappears quickly, though, just as realization and regret hit me. Not for the flash of white-hot anger the disgust in his voice had caused, but that I let slip control. Against the open curiosity of Raiden's face now, however, I know that nothing aside from honesty, even a morsel of it, would suffice. You are not, under any circumstances, to refer to my servants, my household, as... The word is acid in my mouth, the venom behind it. Am I understood? Yes. Perfectly. I let the silence linger for a moment and use it to recover from the outburst that had surprised even myself. Then I pull my cloak closer around me and look at Raiden. Now let's have a moment to think about that. About how protective you are of your servants. How many ambassadors would actually speak that way? Would even be insulted? Be angry that someone called their servant something like that. Not many. So it says a lot about this character that they have given you. There is some foundation there, and it's up to you to build on that foundation. But I am completely behind the ambassador feeling that way about their servants. I love that they made that part of the character. I glanced down at the bag of groceries he since dropped on the ground next to him. He truly knew nothing of what happened in the castle. We wouldn't go after that kind of mark, believe me, messy, with unpredictable outcomes. You should be the one I'm asking about what's going on at the palace. Listen only tells all the fun bits. It's always the boring bits that get you shanked. Cross my arms, uncomfortable at what the question demands of me. The truth is that the castle has been all but shunning me. Some of it's my own fault for having avoided them at dinner and other occasions. But the rest has little to do with my avoidance and all to do with the unfortunate timing of, well, everything. Aside from Olivia, whose good opinion I'm confident I hold, and Lady Marsha, whose good opinion I most definitely hold, I don't know anything of the dynamics in that court. I must find my stride, and quickly. This failed assassination has set things in motion, but I doubt it will be the last thing to go wrong. I am not a cat, Raiden. Huh, that's nice. What is? You say my name like it's important. Oh, Raiden, honey. Raiden. He mimics my tone with the wiggling of his fingers, like a vagrant making a mockery of a wizard's spellcasting. I shake my head, but the stab of annoyance I feel is much reduced now. I'm getting acclimated to his theatrics. Scary, that, given I've known him since quite literally yesterday. Anyway, look, I gotta go drop these groceries off where they won't wilt from all the negative energy you're giving off. But I understand leaving you high and dry will be, how does Eric say it? Rude. So why not play a game? I don't have time for games. Make time then. If you want to ask questions, or you can go back to your castle and stew, that's fine. It's not even your castle, though, in it. I press my lips together to prevent myself from saying something that would only fuel him. Raiden laughs, low in his throat and dry, but clicks his fingers. See if you can follow me, your fanciness. Not hard, it's care enough to pay attention. I'll even make it easy for you. Right. He doesn't wait. Raiden ducks, snatches up the bag of groceries, and in one smooth motion slips away. Before I can so much as call after him, he's gone with a wink, rounding a corner. Raiden keeps his word about being easy to follow at least. He dashes off his promise, but never too far that I can't catch up with him. Round a corner, and he's just disappearing behind another. I come to that corner and peer behind it, and there's a glimpse of that cocky smirk and pale hair vanishing behind another turn. And so he leads me on and on, until at last we're out of town. The forest around Novus looms over you, but it doesn't have the same mysterious, faintly foreboding aura as those in Vithris. It doesn't feel like there are things out there that would stop me for a riddle and steal my family at least, which is a welcome respite from how it often is at home. I look at the dagger's hilt and my waist consideringly. Cedric had agreed to follow me at a distance and come when needed. Well, his liege does need him. Come closer, that is, just in case. So I draw it, just for a second, to see the runes on the blade flash, and then sheathe it again. I step through the humble gates and into the woods. I hear the sound of an axe hitting wood almost as soon as I see the cottage's roof. It doesn't look too shabby from this distance, but just a few steps closer, and I can see how it could benefit from a carpenter's visit. Or 5. The wood chopping echoes again, and I cautiously approach. Not cautious enough, as it turns out. After the wood he'd just cleaved in twain to one side and straightens, a dark frown on his face. Sweat shines on his muscular body, beating upon his furrowed brow as he scans the trees with sharp eyes. I heard you coming. Show yourself. Oh, so Raiden was on it. He's led me where I need to be to satisfy my curiosity myself. Sort of. I lean on a tree and cross my arms and wait. It just wouldn't be right for an aristocrat to answer common man's demand right away, after all. It doesn't take longer than a few seconds for Eric to spot me. The way his eyes widen is almost, rude as it might be to say, comical. Kadir? What in the 7 fucking hells? I can almost hear the gears clicking into place in his head. Anger rolls across his face like a thunderstorm before it groans and presses his hand to his forehead. Ray. I feel a twinge of remorse and a little concern for the snake. Not enough to turn around and leave, though. Come this far. Now we can go the diplomatic route or the flirty route. We're going the flirty route, trust me. Please, don't let me interrupt your work. It's clear he hadn't let off on his training. His arms are almost as thick as some of the firewood he's been splitting. His broad shoulders are built enough. I'm sure he can haul freshly felled trees back to this home, no problem. Eric is, intensely attractive. He does look like I've just personally killed his favorite squirrel that he'd been feeding, though. Better say something. Leave. He doesn't wait for a reply, turning around and marching away instead towards a nearby tree trunk. Then he stops short and looks around. It occurs to me he might be searching for something to cover himself with. And there's nothing. After an awkward pause, Eric sighs gustily. The sound oddly, or maybe not so oddly, reminding me of Livia's, and turns back around. Crosses his arms and glowers. But he has put the axe aside, and I sincerely doubt the man has either the desire or the audacity to use that axe on me, so I step into the clearing. To be fair, it was Raiden who initiated the game of safe. And you followed a shady man into the woods without a second thought? Eric frowns at me and shakes his head, and this time I dare say I see disappointment there. I pity whoever's been tasked with minding you. I think you would agree that being out here with a few birds, a deer or two, and you are much safer than being in the city and its hidden alleys, Sir Eric. Eric's frown deepens, and I think I see a shift there, to a flash of concern. Least of all the castle. It sounds like a grudging agreement. I look at the pile of wood Eric had been chopping, at the larger pile not done, then at the cabin itself. It still seems shabby, but it also looks authentic. Very different from the ones old crones erect in the middle of the woods where they kept kidnapped children and cooked them for stew. So this is what a normal cottage with a normal man living inside is like. You're not leaving, are you? I turn back to the man in question, and he switched to putting his hands on his hips, scrutinizing me sharply, but there's an amusingly defeated look on his face. If you would allow me only a few minutes of your time, I would be beyond grateful. Give them a hand, and they take the whole arm, I say. If you give them lots of cookies. One of my favorite books growing up. He mutters it. I smile in confusion, but Eric doesn't elaborate. Instead, he moves away to grab the axe, put it aside, jerks his chin at the stump he's been using for his work. Why don't you sit? A stump? Fitted with wood chips poised to stab me? Yes, so you don't get too comfortable. Oh, Eric. Now after invasive questions, I'm sure you have plenty of them, and then leave me alone. Hopefully you'll be the last interruption I have for the day. So, if I'm going specific rank, I usually only flirt with the person or people that I plan to romance. So, if I were planning to romance Livia, then I would pick the middle option. If I were planning to romance Raiden and possibly Lucian, I would pick the third option. And if I was going with neither, then I just pick randomly. But in this case, since my intention is to flirt with everybody, we're taking the flirty option, which of course I would take if I were to romance him with or without Naja as well. I cross my arms and tilt my head, pursing my lips. Not even for an interruption as lovely as this, I smile charmingly. Eric gives me a look. If you listen closely, you can hear my words bounce off of him like a pebble off a brick wall. Hopefully, this will be the last interruption I have for the day. The past has been rather stuffy after the assassination attempt, so you decide to talk to somebody who is close enough to know its inner workings but can bring no harm to you. The distrust has crept back into his eyes, his mouth a thin line of displeasure. I don't blame him. I hate that I've been put in this situation all the same. That's why I should have just grilled Raiden or something. This, at any rate. You're giving me too much credit. I smile wryly to myself. Maybe the truth, at least this side of it, was suffice to satisfy him. I wanted to know what happened when you were let go, and whether that had to do with what happened just the other day. Come on. It seems only convenient for the schemes to get rid of a knight commander to shake up the rank and then attempt something as bold as the deaths of your monarch. Unfortunately for them, Knight Commander Vasile is clearly more than capable of ruining their plans, but the notion stands. There is a beat of silence as Eric simply stares at me. Then his eyes narrow. There's dozens of tittering, rotten courtiers to tell you that story. Beautifully, too. And they would all be lying. That gives him pause. Pause longer than I would expect, in truth. I cross my arms and lean back on my heels, bleeding out the heavy silence. It's just begun to turn a little awkward when Eric sighs through his nose. He runs a hand on the back of his neck, looking, for the first time since I've seen him, at a loss. You veterans truly are troublesome. As for your question, all you need to know is that it happened because Eric's jaw clenches. Because I made the wrong choice. I wait for him to say more, but the words seem to have died in Eric's throat. His eyes are fixed on the ground, expression dark. You should meet with my predecessor. The old man would give you a taste of commiseration. They threw him out of the castle on his arse, so went the story. That doesn't surprise me. Now that's new. You know him? Knew him. He served for years as your envoy. Of course I knew him. And that's one of the many things I don't miss about that castle. It about lines up with what I've heard about the previous ambassador, honestly. He was somewhat rude, much entitled, and very inquisitive. Whether he deserved to be exiled, that I don't know. But I do know that punishment is rarely proportionate to the crime. Now that Zealand is the same for Eric. And if his duty had meant as much him as it means to Livia. I glance at his cabin, looking for something else to say, especially since Eric himself doesn't seem willing to help me out here. Will you be at the event tonight? No. Livia will be there, so will Masha. Eric gives me a funny look, and I have to admit I probably wouldn't want to see people I'm close to after my exile either. So will Lucian, actually. For such a small event, there are quite a number of important piles faces to appear. I watch Eric's face carefully for a reaction, but it's not much of one. His brow draws together, but I can't tell if the brow is one of confusion or concern. I haven't learned to read him yet, and I wish I could find the opportunity, or at least more time to do so. No, he's not even volunteering information now, so I might as well ask him directly. Is that normal, or is that strange? Which part? The three of the most important people go to an apparently small socializing event? Lucian does what they want. Always has. More than that, why are you so worried? Because I'm a stranger to this land. Because I've inherited a duty I had no full warning about, problems I didn't know existed or why, nor did I know what's going on in my surroundings. I don't intend to fail at my post, Sir Eric, so I need information, as much of it as possible. And you're correct. Of all the people who were in that castle, you're the most low-risk person I could speak with. Eric crosses his arms and gives me a once-over. I sense immediately that something has changed. Is it my sincerity that's finally appealed to him? Or does he just feel sorry for me that I had to grovel around in the dark to a commoner with just morsels of context that not even my spies and scouts can provide? Take your words for what they are. I release a breath I haven't realized I was holding. He says it warily, but this is still the closest to an awkward friendship Eric has extended me. As I said, Lucian does what they want. A fact I'm well aware of by now, yes. Glad to see that old horned owl hasn't changed. Maja? She doesn't usually attend social functions that don't directly relate to her post. Magician scouts and scholars meetings alike. I thought so too. Perhaps she's going because she wants to take Libya somewhere less stuffy than that castle. The recent debacle probably has Libya overworking. That makes sense. I'm glad to hear that they're looking out for each other. Not that they hadn't always done so. Looks away, staring wistfully in the direction of the city. Doesn't last long before his expression darkens slightly, and he turns back to me. My heart. Doesn't sound like something nefarious is happening, Ambassador. You can safely assume the only people who might die at the event won't be you. I let shift uneasy despite my best efforts. Suddenly, I'm reminded of how many books on how to avoid assassination attempts there are in that library. Is killing people a common thing here in Novus? Not when I was in charge, and not now that Libya is, if she's anything like I knew. I could be asking the same about you. They say veterans get rid of troublemakers as quickly as a lady would throw out a cheap handkerchief. We like troublemakers. The word of law intervenes to prevent bloodshed, not to keep us from enjoying ourselves. But no, assassination isn't part of the culture. Why kill your rival when you can plan an elaborate public occasion to disgrace them? Aristocrats are the same everywhere. His eyes fix on a point behind my shoulder, and he jerks his chin. See your minder? I turn around to see, unsurprisingly, Cedric. He's my attending knight. I'm not a child and don't need a minder. Send him my regards. His job's a hard one. Goodbye, Sir Eric. And truly, thank you for humoring me. Eric shakes his head and waves dismissively. This time I'm eager to be gone, because Cedric is making a point of standing there and staring straight at us. I grab his arm as I pass him and drag him away from the cabin. He normally wouldn't have budged, but this time allows me to pull him along. Small mercies. We're safely behind a bend on the path before I speak. How long have you been there? Long enough. You could have asked me or Yvette any of the things you asked him, and we could have answered you just as well. I know, but you'll be getting those answers from Hersey and the people in the castle. And I trust him to be honest with me. Cedric gives me a skeptical smile. Or did you just want to seek him out? Both. Novus doesn't throw out anything it doesn't need, does it? Sir Eric, that Marquis who was replaced by those triplet noblewomen's father, why? Why is the question? Mistake could be an infuriating, ungrateful thing. That I know very well, even though the laws and bindings of Vesperus present most instances of it. I won't get that answer from Eric. It would be a discourtesy to even inquire after it at this point. Cedric? Yes? I would never throw you away. Never. He smiles, bright and soft, and inclines his head. You know, there's a small part of me that kind of wishes the ambassador and Cedric could have a thing. But it just wouldn't work. Not with the way their relationship is set up. Besides, the person Cedric does end up with is a real sweetheart, so I don't mind. The castle's about as exciting as a graveyard when I get back. Guards are still posted everywhere, but the halls and the gathering rooms around the castle are empty. The few important people I do see walking around do it with their eyes straight ahead and pointedly don't meet my gaze. It's nothing worrisome to me, though. At this point, I could do without the attention. It's too early for dinner, but there's a tray of snacks, tea, and other papers waiting for me on the main desk in the study I've taken as my own. Yvette's handwriting reminding me simply of the event tonight. I have to pick what outfit I want, which is always more trials and tribulations than it's worth. And finally, a small note telling me that Masha wants to speak to me. Right on cue, there's a knock on the door. Lady Masha? The door creaks open, and sure enough, goodness me, I keep saying I won't be making a habit of this, but look where we are. Your company isn't one I mind keeping, my lady. It's true, of all the people in this castle, minus my own staff, she's been the least aggravating so far. Masha claps her hands together and smiles warmly at me. There's an assessing look to her eyes that gets me on guard. Is there something on my face? You miss me so much that you must stare? Why are you here, really? Obviously, we're going with the third option. I lean back on the table and cross my arms, tilting my head. Did you miss me so much that you can't help but seek me out just to look upon my face, my lady? Masha presses a hand to her mouth, though she can't quite stifle a giggle. Her eyes gleam with mirth, and in that moment I feel my lungs constrict. She's beautiful. She's also sizing me up, her gaze piercing. I have a feeling that she isn't looking for faults or flaws, though. Somehow, Masha manages that, to make you feel like she truly is seeing you when she looks at you, yet leave it at only the pleasure of acknowledgement and not discomfort. Am I wrong? Why, Ambassador, you were doing such a good job flattering yourself that I thought you would carry on. But she winks and laughs, and that eases the sting of her teasing some. I thought to check up on you, as well as congratulate you on the speech yesterday. We hadn't had a chance to speak since, after all. I nod slowly. Speech. I wish I could forget about it, if only because in doing so I wouldn't be reminded of how irritating and unfair the circumstances surrounding it had been. I appreciate your concern and do wish it happened more leisurely. You and me both, Ambassador. How was my performance received is probably the better question. It was received well and poorly by the right people in both cases. True. Despite myself, I feel a small twinge of concern. Who are these people that hadn't liked what they heard, or maybe what they saw? Masha is already shaking her head, though, one hand raised as though to halt my racing thoughts. You've reassured the faint heart of your confidence and competence, and proven to those who wish you were otherwise that they are wrong. I hope you understand there are those in this castle whose good opinion you shouldn't care to court. I am well aware. I can't imagine what good being best friends with those three daughters of the Marquis or the man foolish enough to try and insult Lucian in the study that night could earn me. It's nice, though, to hear that the ones who might matter were receptive to my performance. I look up at Masha. You really came in here just to reassure me, didn't you? I wonder if it's foolish to do so, but I don't feel like she's got any ulterior motives to it. I haven't forgotten what she said yesterday in this room, that she hates the petty games and sabotages the nobles play. That isn't too good to be true? That somebody, a stranger to me, and the Archmage of Novus, no less, would care so much for a foreign envoy? I came to update you. It just so happens the news is favorable. And I think Livia deserves a break from my pestering her to change for the event tonight, poor girl. Oh, right, the event. In the span of this conversation, I've almost managed to forget about it. It seems my guess was right, too. Masha really did want to just get Livia out of her armor and the castle and have something else to do. Are you looking forward to it? More or less. It's a small, informal thing, mostly for the merchants to eat and grease each other's pockets. But it is an excellent excuse to break my usual routine, one which I shall take. I see you've talked to Livia. She did seem more cheered up this morning. I assumed she had a good conversation with someone. Please, my lady, you're flattering me too much. Masha laughs and leans at me. Thank you for keeping her company. The castle's choices of it get stale after so many years. A fresh perspective is always nice. She inclines her head at the tray of snacks and letters on the table at my back. I shan't keep you from your afternoon tea any longer. I hope we'll have a chance to speak at length tonight, Rahim. I follow her eyes. As she told me my speech had been well received by some, it only makes more sense why there's a stack of letters right next to it. Which means, indeed, work for me to do. Likewise, Masha. For a moment, I'm tempted to ask her about Eric. It's hard to imagine that man I met at the cabin was with someone who lived here, and if the grapevine was right, had something with Masha as well. But she's already gone, slipping through the door with a final nod and a smile. Maybe it's for the best. I'm aware I've been doing some fierce mailing these days, fun as it has been. Fine, I sit down and pick up the pile of letters. To work. And so the rest of the afternoon and early evening goes. Most of the letters are from aristocrats, likewise expressing their admiration and congratulations for my performance. One asked outright if I could help him get his daughter into our court and find her a suitor. Really. When the time comes to get ready for the event, I'm not ashamed to say I gladly drop the rest of those foolish letters and make a beeline directly for the carriages. If this wine is any cheaper, I would think they broke into a winery and stole the most recently corked caskets by accident. Where else are they going to get enough wine to serve in? He turns and glances at the crowd around us, which isn't sizable, but most definitely not small by any means. Event of potentially 60 to 90 people or more, since all it took to walk through the door is to dress like you belong. Would the host not damn well have enough money and foresight to buy something better than tavern swell if he has the gall to throw this kind of party then? But saying so out loud counts as nothing more than complaining, so I refrain. Instead, since you so rudely interrupted my request of that servant to refill my cup, perhaps I can trouble you with the task? I hold my empty goblet out to him with a raised eyebrow. I don't think the person you're trying to treat like a servant is actually a servant, my liege. They dress so funny. What else could they be? You do find out who that was. Cedric gives me the kind of smile that means he's screaming on the inside. But he takes my cup and leaves, though not before taking one of the pre-filled ones on a nearby tray and shoving it into my hand. Cheeky bastard. Shaking my head, I turn and look at the crowds around me. People asking for a man and attention haven't been few, but not many have had the relevant reasons to hold my interest. The event is for merchants, after all, and those wealthy enough to consider themselves deserving of some food and wine in the rich district. The crowds predictably formed of these people, none of whom seem to have a real goal in mind except to show up and look nice. Look at me, look at me! A few have brought their children, though, who are infinitely more interesting. I watch a little girl stuff cookies into her expensive dress's pockets from where I'm standing. She meets my gaze briefly and freezes, then breaks into a gap-toothed grin when I only wink and then look away, pretending not to see. Across another table, laden with snacks not many are grabbing, I spot Masha. She's engrossed in some conversation with a man I don't recognize, but how richly he's dressed makes me think I should at least know him. And perhaps engrossed is an overstatement with the way Masha is smiling and nodding like she's waiting for a chance to get away. Fortunately for both of us, it comes swooping in only a moment later. A lady in the garb of a wealthy merchant emerges at the rich man's elbow and says something excitedly, her feathered hat bouncing. I watch as the rich man turns to her. I watch as Masha steps back to the right, smoothly detaching herself from the conversation with neither of her guests any the wiser. A moment later, she's at my side, a grin on her face. There you are. I was afraid you'd gotten accosted by someone with a love of chatting and a miser's grip. Thankfully not. I can't imagine it could have made as perfect a getaway as yours. Masha laughs and shakes her head. This is one of my favorite CGs of her. The smile, her laugh, they perfectly captured her. Oh, so beautiful. I mean, they all are, let's be real. Then she studies my face. Her smile remains, but there's an inquisitive tilt to it that makes me just the least bit uneasy. I hope the occasion's been to your liking. Have you tried the strawberry jelly biscuits? Not yet. How's the taste? Rather crumbly, if I'm being honest. You would think they would be more generous with the amount of jelly on each biscuit, considering who's paying, but they're one of the better picks in our menu. She turns to a nearby table, tucking a strand of dark hair behind one ear, and looks around for something. Then she points to a plate piled elegantly with what looks like muffins. Have some of those. I made them myself, so I can guarantee they're at least fresh and don't skimp on the berries. You baked for this event? I hope I managed to keep the surprise out of my voice. I hadn't thought Masha would have such a normal, unrelated to magic hobby. Such a mundane thing to do, isn't it? Don't worry, Raheem, I take no offense. And just so you know, baking is closer to the art of alchemy than is cooking. More things need to be done in exact measurement. Persistence, a little bit of both ingenuity and intuition, and a craving for results, not unlike spellcraft as well, I would say. I wasn't really surprised to realize that she's fake. Part of it is because I watch Great British Bake Off a lot. Meaning I watch it over and over and over again on Netflix. And just from the way the bakers have talked about it and the judges have talked about it, it's clear that, yeah, it is closer to alchemy because you have to do things just right to get the results that you want. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. Yes, I suppose I do know that. Masha chuckles. It sounded sweet and rich to the ear as the muffin she's advertising. She leans over to pick up one of the small plates on the banquet table, puts a muffin on it, and holds it out to me. As I take it, Masha also takes a goblet of wine from my other hand, just slips right out of my grasp into hers. We're going with the flirt. We gotta. I tighten my grip on it, and to my pleasure, it stays in my grip. You thought to seduce me with a treat so you could prolong my drink, Lady Masha? I would have you know I'm scrappier than that. Masha blinks at me and laughs. She lets go and steps back, holding her hands up in a gesture of peace. All right. You may keep your wine, ambassadors, though I must advise you alcohol numbs the mouth. I'd love you to enjoy my creation sober. Reason I bow teasingly at her and bring the nearly empty, filled with very cheap wine goblet to my lips, and lower it and put it on the table with a loud sigh. Just for you, my lady. But the muffin is the right degree of chewy and sweet, the filling of blueberry jelly inside absolutely delectable. This is amazing. Thank you. One of the highlights of this event, if I do say so myself. Put the plate down and look around at the spacious area. There are still plenty of people milling about, but they've since broken into groups of 2s and 3s to talk. Good thing we're almost done. I'm finished my drink, but I have another one. A few of them hover near us with obvious looks of impatience on their faces, probably waiting for a chance to interrupt to get either me or Masha alone. I turn back to Masha and decide to ignore them. Where is Lady Livia? She told me you were going together. Oh yes, poor Livia. We got separated when that nobleman came to insist that I consider tutoring his daughter in private. Masha casts a worried glance around the area, but the Knight Commander's pale head is nowhere to be seen. Don't worry, Masha. She has a sword. And if not that, then at least a knife, I'm sure. Masha smiles, but is just a little pensive. She turns, and I swear I can see her knuckles brushing on the table like she's trying to knock on wood. Then she sighs. I ought to worry less. Livia is more than capable. But you're right, I suppose. She does have a sword, and the sense to not draw it. I generally don't think of the Knight Commander needs either the sword or the ability to draw it to warn people off from bothering her, but it strikes me that saying so might be rude. So I don't. Instead, I set the plate aside and take another sip of the wine. Still cheap, still more juice than wine, but it helps counter the sweetness. What about you, Lady Masha? Have you been enjoying the night? I look at her curiously behind the rim of my goblet, and she answers with a tilt of her head. I hope you've been finding something worth your time here. Not exactly, but I'm not too worried about that, as I'm not looking for anything here. She turns away, beckoning, and I follow her to a quieter part of the place. A few people step up as we move, their mouths half open like they want to ask for mine or Masha's company, but a shake of her head and her raised hand scatter them like so much dust in the wind. To have that kind of command. The sight registers something in me, the magnitude of Masha's station and presence, that she could quiet the lesser folk with little more than a gesture. She's been so friendly and forward that I've managed to put aside the fact that she is the most powerful mage in Novus. Another wave of Masha's hand, this time glimmering with blue light. I feel a cool calm settling over us. A spell of privacy, I realize. Allow me this liberty. I'd like to speak with important guests without interruptions. To answer that burning question in your eyes, yes, that's true. I don't usually have the luxury of time in my schedule to attend these more frivolous events. And I suppose your next question is why this one. She smiles, wryly yet knowingly. The food and the wine I've had suddenly sits uncomfortably in my stomach. But Masha's already shaking her head, holding up a hand as though she could stop the torrents of thoughts from going through my mind and drown me. Please don't take it as an accusation about your recent outings. It isn't. But you know where I went, what I did, and who I spoke to. It's not a question. Another knowing smile. No, I don't. I can find out, but I'd rather value your privacy over humoring doubts I know are unfounded. As for me, I attended this event to ascertain the merchant class attitude and comfort level. People with monetary material stakes are easily spooked predictably. Trade season commences soon for metals and winter rations after all. She gives me an expectant look and I nod in agreement. It's true. In the following months, Errantus would be sending his wagons packed with iron and steel and skilled crafters down to Vithris, and we would be sending wagons full of grain and foodstuffs back up north. That trade is crucial for Novus to stock up enough supplies for the coming winter. You can understand why Maja is worried. I doubt there's much to worry about in that regard. I haven't yet sent a message to our court about what almost happened here. The traders won't let gossips of a failed assassination attempt get in the way of disrupting their routine. Maja smiles, and I can see relief and happiness in her eyes. Most excellent, and thank you for your discretion regarding information. Pay it no mind, my lady. There's really nothing to report on. I thought this kind of work isn't for you. Is that the reason you're here tonight? Aside from that present lovely company, we're flirting. I incline my head at Maja in a small bow that means more than just courtesy and smile. Aside from accounts of present lovely company, that is. I'm sure you understand that I would much prefer to keep something so precious to myself. Maja laughs softly, but she turns away just as though she's trying to hide her face and thinking better about it. I can't be sure, but I think I see a blush high on her cheeks. Is it the wine? I choose to believe it's my 40th product there. You're quite masterful at diplomacy, Ambassador. One would hope, considering what I'm here for. I do so appreciate it. Maja opens her mouth as though thinking of saying something more, then pauses. She turns, and I turn with her to see Cedric approaching us with not one, but 2 wine goblets. Lady Maja, how fortunate. I think Commander Livia might be looking for a rescue. Where is she now? Thank you for the warning. She smiles at him like they're old friends, and glances apologetically at me. I shake my head in amusement. It takes an effort not to smile. I will see you later, Maja. Hopefully soon. Absolutely, my friend. But the time for a proper conversation as well. She pats Cedric's arm as she passes him despite his bow, and that's definitely way too familiar for them to have not known each other. I wait until Maja's walked outside before turning back to Cedric and raising an eyebrow. He shrugs, offering me one of the goblets, which I take. But it's not wine in there, it's tea. I give it back to him. What? If I observed correctly, you had cake. Blueberry muffin, actually. And it's one of the best I've ever tasted. I don't suppose Maja could be convinced to part with the recipe. He glances at the second goblet in Cedric's hands thoughtfully, but he splashes the content on one of the nearby walls. The liquid inside sizzles upon contact. Poison. Not that the young lady who would have died tonight needs to know that. Cedric? She's no one of importance, my liege. Go, warn her and her minders. Cedric tilts his head and frowns at me, but it's a kind of considering frown. I know I will give way to agreement if I insist. And I do insist, crossing my arms and staring hard at him. Sure enough, he sighs and nods. Oh, very well, my liege. Give me a moment. He dumps the tea into the bush, too, with a grimace of disgust. He tells me he's tried it before and found it wanting. He looks directly at the low wall on our other side. Turn and the face sitting there, who's been there for God knows how long, laughs. Okay, Barry's promised. Cedric gives me another glance like, I cannot believe you send me off on this errand. With a shake of his head, departs again. And for son's sake, do something about the criminal. If he hears me, he doesn't give any indication, but I'm sure he hears me. I turn to Rue. Having planned eavesdropping? Rue dust crumbs off their pants and shrugs merrily, their dimpled smile bright enough to almost be a light in the gloom. With a final glance behind me to make sure no one is eavesdropping, I come to their side and lean on the wall. The night streets stretch out before us, half hidden in shadows. For a moment, I wonder if Raiden is hidden in any of them. Don't worry, Ray's busy tonight. I glance sharply at Rue, who only shrugs again and wipes away the frosting out the corner of their mouth with a thumb. No mind-reading tricks here. Nope, just Ray telling me that you've been running into him a lot lately. They crook their fingers for air quotes when they say running into him. I have. He has a talent for showing up at places he's not supposed to be. Rue giggled. He does, no? The best part about Ray, I'm telling you. I stare at them flatly. I see now. I see how it is. You're enjoying Raiden's exploits so much because you yourself can't go where you're not invited, can you? I mean, I wouldn't go where he usually does willingly, honestly. What exactly are these places? No fun where he's going? Where do you prefer to go? We want to know more about them. And where do you prefer to go? Anywhere, that's nice. Rue grins, the kind of grin that tells me they're fully aware of their own vagueness. I shake my head. What else did I expect? I like the palace garden. It's peaceful there, and the stone doesn't mind you unless you have nefarious agendas in mind. Now that's news. The garden? You went to the castle? No, just the garden. They swing their gangly legs over the balcony and rub at their arms, shivering. Looks dramatic from where I am, but I don't think it is dramatization. That castle's all stone and steel and squabbling fools, and have you seen the decor? I look away, passing a hand over my mouth to hide a smile. Not that Rue could see it in this darkness. It's sophistication. Novians love that. Metallic designs, orderliness, stifling, I'm telling you. But the garden's like a crack in the shell where the light can get in. There are flowers there that Eric missed. Sometimes I come and take some. Oh? Rue meets my inquisitive gaze with a smile, but there's a sharp look to theirs, too. Wary, yes, but also almost hopeful. For what? Yes. You seem the dependable sort with the small, seldom mentioned facts. You can know that tidbit. They press a finger to their grinning mouth and wink. But keep it that way, okay? Small, I mean, and seldom mentioned. But of course. Who is going to believe me that Eric likes flowers? And who would care that he misses the ones from the palace gardens? Rue, of course. Raiden, perhaps. And me, if I so choose, now that I'm privy to this knowledge. I look at Rue critically. Their smile is unwavering, though they stare right back. I think they meant the tidbit of information as an invitation, more than just an answer to my question. Space can talk you into circles for weeks if they choose, and say nothing at all. Say words that mean something to permit the discovery of something new about Rue, about the people they call friends, that's comparable to a gift. But of course, the common courtesy is to not address it directly. Fairy politics are delicate as spider webs. Glad we're on the same page. If I made you worried about Raiden, or rather worried for him, rest assured, we aren't enemies, and I don't intend to make it so. Or Eric, for that matter, though in his case, clear my throat, so I only remember the debacle from earlier today. I admit I was the one who had been showing up where I'm not supposed to be. Oh yeah, that was funny. Can't believe you actually followed Ray. Fancy folk like you so often are scared of their own shadow, let alone one of Rue taps her chin thoughtfully. It can almost scare the cogs turning in their mind. Choosing what to call your friend very carefully, I see. He's many things. They snap their fingers, sending a shower of golden sparkles loose. Let's go with rogue. I snort. That's a broad enough description, I suppose. But if I was asked, I'd go for knave. And how exactly did you know about that encounter, Errant complained about you. Their grin is wide and mischievous, and I refuse to show embarrassment, even if the first hot tendrils of it are beginning to bubble in my chest. I'm sure he has only the most stellar things to say about me. Rue draws out the sound. I shake my head and wave my hand, hoping they would stop. I get the point. He appreciates you, I'm sure. Relatively, anyway. Not many people sought him out with good intentions since he was banished. Yes, that shook him up mightily, it did. It's good to see him talk to someone aside from me, Ray, and the lady selling him another round at the tavern. Rue looks away and smiles, but it's tinged with wistful sadness, reminiscing the days before things changed, perhaps. It's only fair. I know how swiftly and irreversibly and unfairly things can change. I leave Rue to the reverie and gaze out into the night instead. Standing as we are on the edge of the festivities, the event and its people seem far away, muffled. Their problems, too. Do you miss home, Raheem? I miss it terribly. See my shabby little gang. Maybe, but here is lovely. Maybe. In fact, I do miss it dearly. I hadn't been prepared for how different and cold Novus would be in comparison. Maybe once I'm familiar with this place it will fade, but for now, I do miss Vespers. Still, I turn to Rue and smile. Raheem? Rue winks. Then their grin widens, and a helpless giggle escapes their mouth before they can clamp down on it. Flattery. They wag their finger at me, but giggle louder as I lean over them. Terribly effective flattery, too, it would seem. Not the worst I've gotten, certainly. Not the clumsiest. How do I rank among the myriads of other propositions you've gotten over your long, long life, good neighbor? Let's see, definitely between the knight who thought chopping down my tree was a romantic gesture. Don't worry, I let him know it wouldn't go unpunished. And Rue. Rue? You? Nah, Rue, my dearest, who gave her name to me as a gift at our party. Oh. I studied Rue's face. They smiled back, sincere if just a little challenging. Quite the challenge indeed. You Novians have strange tastes in gifts. What would a Bitsman have given someone they fancy? Attention, if it was a fae. Time, a token of their passion and talent. Surely people write poetry and serenade their lovers here. Oh, they do. My tree became a popular confession spot maybe a couple decades back. Confessing sins or feelings? Feelings. It's really sweet to hear them do it honestly. Worth the second-hand embarrassment. Sometimes. You are capable of feeling embarrassed? Hey! No, I mean sympathy. I think that's more accurate. I chuckle and lean away, shaking my head. Truly, they're far too endearing. Suddenly, Rue pauses and perks up, not unlike a rabbit who's gone on the alert. I glance by me curiously just in time to see a familiar face gliding towards me with a goblet of wine held high. And now for Lucian. Almost done. There you are. After much I said you had gone on ahead, I had thought you had kidnapped or worse. They stopped short a few steps from me, an eyebrow raised. I hope I wasn't interrupting anything. I glanced back at the place Rue had been previously to find them predictably having vanished. Of course. I'm afraid it's too late for that, Ambassador Veritas. My apologies for what it's worth. They come to stand next to me and hold out their goblet. Before I can reach out to take it out, though, they'd lifted it up to their mouth and taken a long pull from it. And here I thought you brought it for me. I could. Would you accept a drink from a fellow courtier without question? Duh. With you, I will take my chances. Lucian chuckles to sound low and velvety. I drank no wine, but it still settles in me as warm and dark as if I had taken a mouthful after all. You would? A dangerous and daring choice considering the penchant for backstabbing and poisoning you're no doubt familiar with during your career. I'm well aware, Lucian. I glanced at the wall where Cedric had thrown the poison goblet's worth of wine, where the stone is still stained and scarred, and hear Lucian make a noise of understanding. But not as surprised or appalled, interesting, and also somewhat worrisome. Lucian seems to be considering me instead, and I meet their gaze, my smile short. It can be nothing much. Then they laugh again, soft and lilting this time, appreciative, and in that instant I wonder what I can do to hear that sound again. I can definitely get used to your attention. You would know all about slipping poison into wine, though, wouldn't you, considering your friendship with the snake? Lucian shrugs and takes another sip of their wine. They drink it like it's tasty, which makes me wonder if they didn't bring their own bottle to the event. He's not that kind of snake. So it fascinates me that you are so interested in my friend. I ran into him an unfortunate amount of times between yesterday and today. Your fondness of him made him quite bold. This is stirring dangerously close to tallying on Lucian for Raiden having actually scared me in the library yesterday night. But now that they're here and we're alone, my burning curiosity is coming back. I give the demon a sidelong glance, wondering, hoping if they would volunteer any information. They meet my gaze and raise an eyebrow. If I didn't know better, Ambassador, I might even think you're trying to scold me. Does anyone in this council have that right to scold you? Not yet, not yet. But don't take it as disparagement of you trying. There's been an awfully small amount of toes being stepped on and lines being crossed in Novus lately, getting positively stale. I shake my head and Lucian laughs again. Truly, though, I appreciate your initiative. The way they say that isn't like a fisher dangling a hook into the water. The way they're arching their eyebrows at me. Lucy knows, I'm sure. If they don't know what's happening today in detail, then they at least know the general things, maybe even what happened last night. It doesn't make me as uneasy as the thought of Naja knowing, though. I can almost be sure Raiden had been talking. Not that these Novians are too keen on telling anything. Oh, most certainly. Can't even make them talk to each other half the time, unless by order or under threat. I'm sorry, that must have made your experience in court vexing. Whatever you are here for, Ambassador Veritas. Such skepticism. Wouldn't you want an all-beautiful demon lording about in your court? I tapped my chin thoughtfully, considering the answer as much as making Lucian anticipate it. For this is the game, not one I'm a stranger to. You play enough of them with the Fae, and you learn to at least like it a little. Perhaps an attractive and well-spoken one. Lucian inclines her head and winks. The good court of Novus thought the same. I'm glad to know I am not singular in my good taste, after all. Now, if you would, I have a proposal. All my previous thoughts are pushed aside. I straightened, feeling for a moment as Drew did when they sensed Lucian's approach, alert if not a little excited. I hope it doesn't show too visibly, as much as I could feel as though a door is being opened for me. Go on. Lucian grins at me, the arch of their eyebrow absolutely conspiratorial. Soon there will be a jousting practice held by and for the knights who still remain in Novus. It's a small event, not much in terms of publicity, but don't doubt its importance. As you might be aware, many of the nobility have investments in one or several of these knights. The knighthood is reserved for the nobility class, then? Strange, I hadn't thought so, as Eric seemed so obviously common-born, and so did Livia. Her life would have been easier in these kinds of events if she had been noble-born, I'm sure. No. Acceptance and promotion are based on ability and endorsements, with some neutral party voices weighing in. Nonetheless, it's an elite order and carries with it visible prestige. It would stand to reason that aristocrats would also want a morsel, as well as experience fear and resentment when those they consider fundamentally inferior surpass them. They incline their head meaningfully, and in that moment I understand. Lucian is inviting me to come watch who would squirm, and who's above this sort of fragile pride. Why do you work to expose the court of its weakness? Because it's entertainment. Do you truly think the most valuable and enduring pillars of Novus would be out in the open experiencing something as trifling as their investments? They have a point there, but I could still find reason to be suspicious given how readily Lucian has replied, like they thought of it before. Now, Commander Nistrom was one of those merit-based promotions, wasn't he? Lucian smiles, just the faintest hint of regret to her face. I don't know if it's genuine, but it seems very much so. Correct, but that's not the reason why he ended up where he was. I didn't expect so. I suppose a more relevant question, Lucian, is why you have gone to such lengths to not only invite me, but explain why. What do they want to gain from me? Am I an exciting new pebble to throw into the already tumultuous pond that is the Novian court? A card in Lucian's sleeve waiting for the draw, like I suspect Raiden is? Lucian meets my gaze with a smile that will not budge. I don't hold it against you for being so suspicious. I tapped the chin thoughtfully. Will you believe me if I say that I look forward to having a peer? At least one I am on equal footing with. Masha has been nothing but the best acquaintance, but she is only one person. That's all? Lucian arches an eyebrow and gestures with their wine goblet. That's all I'm offering. What else can I gain from their invitation will be up to me. That's just the implication. Cross my arms and stare into the night, pondering. It's not a hard choice to make. Maybe it seems foolish to think so, but I don't doubt that Lucian has no ulterior motives against me in offering. And I haven't gotten this far in life on being a poor judge of character. You are shading this like an accessory, Ambassador, with the fondness of locking it, too. Lucian chuckles and presses a hand to their chest, pretending to look wounded. The pragmatism, it burns. I will have an invitation delivered to you by, They tap their chin again. At least a full day prior to our outing. How about it? It's my turn to arch an eyebrow at them. Our outing, Lucian? I would presume to think it's going to be something that intimate. Very well. Ours and theirs. You will find many important faces that you want to acquaint yourself with. The Marquis's daughters decide. Perhaps you might even want a horse in the race, so to speak. Who knows that next Errant Kingdom might be invited to participate. I could almost feel like they're physically yanking my chains. It's silly, as Cedric won't have anything to do with it. I'm fairly sure that this visiting knight is a stranger to me, nor has Lucian even Novian. Still, I'm sure our horse in the race will do most excellently. Lucian laughed behind their hand, low enough to almost be a rumble. That knight will be flattered by your confidence, I'm certain. There is a gauntlet and a one-man, or perhaps one demon toast, downs the rest of it, and then with a bow retreats back towards the festivities of his people. That leaves me alone with the knight, and with only the faintest whisper of the flowers at which it clung to Rue for company. I lean on the wall and breathe in the night air, but to no avail. Thoughts buzz in my head, pieces that don't quite fit together just yet, nonetheless falling into their approximate places. What truly matters, though, is finding a way forward. I have no doubt at least some of the nobles who had reacted positively to my speech and had gone so far as sending me letters of commendation would be at the jousting practices. From what Erica has said, the previous ambassador of Victorus wasn't someone with many friends. I will not make that same mistake. I can't afford to. Sighing, I pull my robes around me and begin the walk back to the banquet, but my appetite for it is long gone now. Instead, I'll head straight to the waiting carriages. There's much work to be done, and I'll need a clear head for it all. And that's the end of the chapter. So that's the end of the chapter for the ambassador. Next week will be chapter 1 for the knight. In case you haven't figured it out yet, you're going to encounter each potential love interest at least once each chapter. Prologue notwithstanding. There really wasn't a way for the nomad to meet Livia in the prologue. So, So that's it for today. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I will keep streaming Errant Kingdom. I haven't decided yet if I'll finish streaming what's available of it, or and then play when the next comes revamp, or if I'll do the revamp. If I'll stop for a bit, do the revamp, and then finish playing when the night comes. Probably the latter, because I'm really looking forward to it. But I will probably at least play through it once to get over my initial screen, and then I'll play the actual game itself, stream the game itself. I won't be doing the Piper romance this time around. I'll be doing a different romance. I'm pretty sure I said that before. It feels like there's a predilection for certain romances, and I want every romance to get a chance to shine, so to speak. Which is part of the reason that I did the non-romance for Arcade Spirits and then the Juniper speedrun. So, that being said, I will see you all next week, and look forward to seeing the Ambassador Prologue up next week, then the next Prologue, then the Nomad Prologue the week after that. If I feel like it's too long, I will probably bump up at least one of the uploads, so that there's less time between the stream and then the upload itself. But I will try to re-record the night prologue before next Saturday. So until next week, you have a great week. Bye.